Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, the podcast where we dive into all things supernatural. This season, we're starting with Charmed, so grab your spellbook and your popcorn, and let's get magical. Hello, listeners. This is Aleacia here. I just wanted to give a brief apology for the lateness of this episode. We had some technical difficulties, but it's here now. Enjoy! Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, a rewatch and reread podcast. I'm Aleacia.
And I'm Elizabeth. This season, we'll go minute by minute through every episode of Charmed, giving you all the details and diving into the magic, the drama, and everything in between.
That's right. Each week we're going to break down one episode of Charmed, and today we're recapping Season 1, Episode 8, The Truth is Out There, and It Hurts.
But before we get started, just a quick reminder to follow us on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review if you're enjoying our deep dive.
Before we get started for realsies, I just want to give a brief disclaimer that we are in an alternate location. We are in the place where we met. But that also might mean that you hear crazy sounds, or you might hear some like background music or something random, and I apologize, but we really wanted to get you an episode this week. So we have tried so many different ways to get you this podcast.
It's one of the struggles of busy schedules. So.
Yes, we've tried like Zooming on the road. We've tried, what else we tried? Tried in the car. We
tried meeting somewhere else.
Yeah, we tried the library the first time, which is where we usually meet.
Something came up though.
Yeah, so this is like the fourth iteration of this one episode.
Yes, but this is it.
Yes. So we start the episode in a parking garage. We see a Dr. Mitchell walking to his car, and a warlock named Gavin is there. Gavin is a ridiculous name for a warlock. I'm just saying. It does not spark fear, but it is what it is. Ooh, Gavin.
Hey, don't judge people's names. It's okay.
I feel like as an Aleacia, I can judge anybody's name I want.
You do have a very unique name. I love it.
Gavin says, "Excuse me, are you Dr. Mitchell? Dr. Oliver Mitchell?" And the way he talks is very, like, melodic, very, like, sing-songy. He says yes, and Gavin says, "What a pleasure. I can't tell you how long I've waited for this." Dr. Mitchell is confused. He asks, "Excuse me, but have we..." And Gavin, like, picks up the end of his sentence and says, "Met? I'm sorry, only in print. I've read your work. Your studies, specifically on cell generation, are ahead of their time." Dr. Mitchell says he's very kind, and Gavin says, "No, really, it's fascinating. You've become kind of a hobby of mine. I found your article on the mutant retina gene to be particularly intriguing." Again, this whole conversation, Dr. Mitchell is very confused. He says, "I haven't even..." And Gavin finishes his sentence again and says, "Published it yet? Don't worry, you will, and you'll help to find the vaccine." Dr. Mitchell says, "The vaccine? Against what?" And Gavin says, "Against this." And a laser beam comes out of his forehead and burns a hole in Dr. Mitchell's forehead, which is crazy. Yeah. Then we cut to a movie theater, and the sisters are standing in line. Phoebe is holding a magic 8-ball. She's reading it. It says, "Ask again later." And she says, "Hello, vague. How am I supposed to plan my future without a little direction?" And Prue kind of laughs, and she's like, "You who can see the future is now looking for it in a magic 8-ball?" Phoebe says, "My visions don't help me remember." And Piper is like, "I got an idea. Why don't we ask if Prue and Andy are going to get back together?" Prue asks them not to do that, but Phoebe shakes the magic 8-ball. Phoebe and Piper are very much like, "Ooh, interesting. Very interesting." And Prue tries to look at what the ball says, but Phoebe shakes it up before she can see it. And then we never see what the magic 8-ball said, which is heartbreaking. But Piper's pager beeps.
Yes, we officially know what the sound of a pager makes.
She says, "I forgot what a day off feels like. That was my boss, Martin. I have to get back to the restaurant." You know, she has to say, "That was my boss, Martin," because we don't know who Martin is.
Yeah, because she was the boss for the longest time.
Yeah, who is Martin? I thought it was Chef Moore. Who is Martin?
Like, he definitely came out of nowhere.
Yeah. She says there's an invention She says there's a convention in town and business is just crazy. Phoebe says, "But you worked a double shift yesterday and the day before that. He's working you to death, Piper." Prue tells her that she thought she was going to talk to Martin about it weeks ago. Martin wasn't around weeks ago. That's probably why she didn't talk to him.
Exactly. Again, Martin just, like...
appeared for the drama. Yeah. Piper says she never got around to it, and she takes out her cell phone and dials the number. So for anybody who doesn't know how a pager works, the pager sends you a message with like a phone number. Yes. Mm-hmm. And you still have to call that phone number, and you cannot call it from a pager.
Correct.
In case anybody didn't know how a pager works and why she has 2 devices, which seems like a lot of devices.
I mean, there was pagers before cell phones.
Yes. Phoebe tells her to tell him to stuff it. She says, tell him you're taking the night off, and that's that. Piper says, I know, you're right, I will. And then she talks on the phone to Martin and says, hello, Martin. No, I know what you want, but no, that's not a problem. I'll be right there.
She definitely does not stand up for herself.
No. And Prue and Phoebe kind of make fun of that. Prue saying, wow, you told him. And Phoebe saying, beware the wrath of Piper.
I love how in this episode, they do really good at roasting each other.
Yes. Piper leaves, and Phoebe says that she'll walk her to the car because it's safer. And as she is walking, first of all, they just left Prue, and Prue's like, I'll wait here, like, chop liver by myself.
Yes.
But she has to hold up spot in line, okay?
True, and there were other people around.
Yes.
More traffic.
Yes. It was a very, like, busy roadway. Mm-hmm. Phoebe is, like, pushing past people. She bumps into Gavin the warlock, and she has a premonition of him burning a hole into a woman's forehead. So she stops Piper and says, I just had a premonition. A woman's about to get murdered. And then we see, like, a police car with sirens driving into the parking garage. So the sisters all run to it, and they see Dr. Mitchell lying on the ground with the hole burnt in his forehead. Oh, excuse me. Piper tells Prue that Phoebe saw that murder before it had even happened. And Phoebe says, no, not this one. And Phoebe says, no, not this one. I think I saw the next one. And then we cut to credits.
What did you think of this opening?
I thought it was a pretty decent opening. Like, it kind of mixed the A plot and the B plot really well. Mm-hmm. Got the girls involved really quickly. There wasn't, like, a random scene for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
So I thought, it was good. And I do think in this episode, there is a lot of, like, random, like, the B plot is, like, sometimes random.
Yeah.
But I think that this, like, kind of drew everything together.
I agree. I think it was a really good start because immediately, like, the antagonist goes right to work.
Yeah.
And it draws the audience and it makes you want to know what happened. Because I know that it mentions that the beam comes out of his forehead, but it doesn't actually show that in the episode. Mm-hmm. It just shows the professor or doctor standing there and then a beam coming and hitting his forehead, but you don't actually see that it's coming out of the forehead. Mm-hmm. And so I liked how it was, like, more intriguing than, like, okay, well, we know it came out of his forehead because we don't know that quite yet.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see, like, as we move forward, if, like, episodes like this are very sister heavy. They're heavy on whatever the sisters' plot is, and less about the actual bad guy.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to see if that, like, changes as we've, like, built relationships with the sisters so we know what's happening with their lives, and they're like, we assume you already know all these facts.
Yeah.
Or if we continue to, like, be more focused on the sisters and less on the bad guy. Because I feel like in the last few episodes, like, the bad guy has been defeated so easy.
Yes. I agree with that.
So, very curious to see, as we keep going, like, how...
Like, if it's more challenging for the sisters to defeat them.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, I get them making the girls, the prime focus, because obviously that's what it's about. But at the same time, I do agree where it's, like, the action of defeating the bad guy is over within minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of it being drawn out and you keeping focus.
Yeah. After the credits, we are in the Halliwell Manor kitchen. Piper is making coffee, Phoebe's pouring cereal into a bowl, and Prue is sitting down to read the paper and drink more coffee. She says, is this leaded? And Piper says it always is. And I don't know what leaded means. I think it just means really strong.
I have no clue. I drink coffee, but I don't know that language.
I probably should have Googled it. Anyway,
Yeah.
not relevant. But Piper knocks the cereal off the table, and she freezes it before she hits the ground, and she places the trash can underneath it. The cereal unfreezes, and it falls into the bin. But I think you and I were talking, and you were like, why didn't she just, like, stand it back up?
Yes, like, she could have literally grabbed the box and, like, scooped that frozen cereal up, and then let the rest fall into the trash can instead of wasting a box of cereal. Maybe that's just me and my saving techniques. Like, why waste that?
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I do kind of like that moment because I like that it shows that she, using her powers is like a reflex to her now, and she's like, you know, in her daily life is incorporating her powers. Yeah. So I kind of like that little moment, though it doesn't make sense that she didn't save the cereal.
I know, but that's okay.
Like, if you're gonna freeze it, pick it up.
Right? Instead of just wasting it.
Yes. Leo walks in. He says, good morning. He says, I took a look at the staircase. Shouldn't be more than 2 days' work. You mind if I get started? Piper tells him that she does not mind and says that she'll make some coffee. And then her pager beeps. So Phoebe cuts in and says, but you're busy. I'll get it. Be right there, Leo. And Prue asks when they are going to stop fighting over him and grow up. And then you, like, in the background, see Phoebe and Piper fighting over the coffee cup.
I guess I didn't notice that, actually.
Yeah.
And I watched the episode 4 times just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Apparently I missed that, so that's funny.
But Phoebe realizes, Piper says, when Phoebe realizes that she doesn't have a chance with him, and Phoebe says, well, that doesn't matter now because I have to go protect the innocent. Piper says that they will call a truce temporarily and that she will take the coffee to Leo. Prue tells Phoebe that she only likes him because Piper does. And Phoebe disagrees. She says, that is so not true. I'm wounded. Now, is there anything in there about last night's murder? Talking about the paper. And Prue says nothing. Phoebe asks how she's supposed to figure out who the girl in her vision is. Prue asks her what she looks like. And Phoebe's like, well, she was about 5'3". The hair was, like, lightish. She was a woman.
She was very, very, like, vague.
Yeah.
She described a lot of women just now.
Yeah. She's like, it's not on videotape. I can't exactly rewind it. Hey, you've got to talk to Andy. And Prue's like, absolutely no, I do not have to do that.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Phoebe says, well, if I can't find her, then I have to find the killer before he gets to her. Prue asks if she has checked the Book of Shadows, and she says, from the way you described your vision, it sounds like it could be something demonic. And Phoebe says, well, but for all we know, Andy's already hot on his trail. You have to go see him and find out. Prue says no.
She is still wounded from the little breakup that they have. So I get that.
Yeah. Prue says that she can't, and Phoebe says, you won't. Prue says, Phoebe, give me a break. We just stopped seeing each other. Don't you think it might be a little bit awkward? Phoebe suggests that she goes to see Andy, and Prue looks in the Book of Shadows. She says, Prue, I had this vision for a reason. I'm supposed to save her. I know it, and I have to find her. So we cut to the attic, and Prue is looking through the Book of Shadows. She says, she starts talking to herself. She's like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. And she closes the book and heads to the door. But the book, because it's its own character, opens on its own and flips to a truth spell. Mm-hmm. So Prue walks back over to the book, and she's like, what the heck? Yeah. She, shuts the book quickly and, goes to leave the attic, and the book backs up to the spell. Yeah. Sometimes the book is chaotic, honestly. It's like, do this random spell. No personal gain. Do this random spell for personal gain. No. It's chaotic energy. We cut to Quake, and it is, packed. The busiest restaurant on Earth. And Piper is sitting at the bar. She's talking on the phone. She is talking to a vendor about extra tablecloths. And the guy next to her, spills his drink all over her paperwork, which is unfortunate. And we see the mysterious Martin walk up. Martin's like, I need this space. Can't you do this in the manager's office? Piper says, you took my desk, remember, Martin? And he says, then go somewhere else. I've got a restaurant full of conventioneers. I just ran out of white corn chowder, and I need you to get a hold of produce. Pronto. Piper says, what about the books? And Martin tells her that she can take them home.
I don't think I would have allowed that to happen.
No.
Like, don't talk to me like that.
Exactly.
Whether you're my boss or not.
Yeah.
Like, not okay.
He says, I come back after 3 weeks, and this place is chaos.
Again, where was he and who is he?
Also, I don't feel like that lines up because supposedly Piper was going to talk to him about this weeks ago, and he just came back after being gone for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Make it make sense,
That's
script writers.
Mm-hmm.
Piper stands up and like real aggressive. And she's like, Martin, you know what I think? And he's like, what? What do you think? And she's like, I think I'm going to need that number for produce.
I can't wait until she gets her backbone.
Yes. At Buckland's, we're in Prue's office, and she is sitting at a desk. She's like looking longingly at a photo of her and Andy.
Yes.
Phoebe comes in and asks if she can borrow Prue's laptop to do some surfing on the web to see if she can find anything about the burns in the victims' foreheads. Prue is like, I never thought of you as being computer friendly, which I feel like is funny because Phoebe's the youngest, so like I feel like of anyone it would be her.
Yeah.
Like, you just use yours for research, Prue. It's not that deep.
Very valid.
Phoebe says, are you kidding? Chat rooms saved my life.
Which makes me wonder, what does she mean by that?
Yeah. Prue asks if Phoebe talked to Andy, and Phoebe says that she spoke to his partner instead. Prue's like, Morris? Our bestie Morris? And Phoebe's like, I didn't have to tell him about the case. Every inspector in the station was talking about it. The only problem is they're stumped. Did you find anything in the Book of Shadows? Prue says that she's not sure, and she's like, so you didn't see Andy, though?
But give me something.
Phoebe says that she didn't talk to Andy, but she saw him just fine. She said, I saw him in the parking lot when I left, but he had that look, Prue. You know the one I'm talking about. You might recognize it from the mirror. He really cares about you. Prue is defensive. She's like, you don't think I know that? Okay. And Phoebe says, so what are you waiting for? Tell him the truth. It's the only thing standing in between you guys. Prue says, tell him I'm a witch? I can't do that. What if he can't handle it? It's not like I can put the genie back in the bottle. Foreshadowing. And Phoebe says, he's not going to turn you into the warlock police. At least you'd know how he feels once and for all. Otherwise, you never know if you could have worked out or not. If I were you, I'd figure out how to tell him. Thank you for the laptop.
I feel like Andy would have been more accepting of this because of like the very first episode, how he knew that they were witches.
Yeah.
So I feel like her just letting him know, I don't feel like it would have hurt anything.
Yeah, same. Especially if she went about it the right way, you know?
Yes. And I personally don't feel like she went about it the right way.
I don't either. We'll get to that.
Yes, we will.
The sandwich lady comes to the door. The sandwich delivery lady asks if Prue wants a sandwich. Her name is Tanya. And she says, I saved you your favorite, turkey, no mayo. And I used to eat my sandwiches like that with no mayonnaise, so.
I had a meeting yesterday, and it was a launch meeting. So the other company, they provided us lunch, and they had turkey, but it all had mayo, and like half the people did not eat it because they're like, I'm not big on mayo at all. So I feel like yesterday Prue could have been in the office.
We cut to the Halliwell Manor in the attic. Prue is like staring at the truth spell in the Book of Shadows. She says, okay, you win. Outside, Piper opens the door. She's holding like all the paperwork, like her arms totally full.
All the books.
And Phoebe comes up. She says, hey, stranger, back from the war? Piper says, more like I brought the battle home with me. Inventory.
Ugh, numbers. Gross.
Yeah. Phoebe says, I'll help you with yours if you help me with mine. And then in the attic, Prue is saying the spell. The spell is, for those who want the truth revealed, open hearts and secrets unsealed. From now until it's now again, after which the memory ends. Which I feel like is nice.
Yeah, that was a good little spell.
Yes.
It flowed very well, and it went with the episode.
Yes. Back downstairs, Phoebe is saying to Piper, I guess you didn't talk to your boss. Piper says, of course I did, just like I said I would. Am I getting a zit on my chin? Phoebe says, can't even see it. Prue is continuing the spell. She says, for those now who are in this house will hear the truth from others' mouths. And Piper is saying, you really can't see it? Phoebe says, are you kidding? That thing looks like it has a life of its own.
Which, if you look at her, you don't see a zit at all. Like, at all.
No.
So her describing it as if it was its own entity was a bit much.
Yes.
It was so funny.
And Phoebe asks her if she really told off Martin. And Piper says, no, I lied. I chickened out. And they both, like, look at each other like, what the heck is going on?
Yes.
In the attic, Prue starts dialing the phone, and it goes to Andy's answering machine. And she leaves a message saying, hi, Andy, it's Prue. I was wondering if you could call me, please, soon, like within the next 24 hours. I need to talk to you about something, so just call, okay? Tonight would be fine, too. Okay,
Like,
bye.
Very desperate.
Yes. And then we cut to a science lab. A lab technician is doing some work, and Gavin enters the room. He asks if the guy's name is Mr. Pearson, Alex Pearson. Alex says, yeah, can I help you? And Gavin says, in so many ways. Working late tonight, aren't you? Alex is like, I work better at night. Also, these soil samples just arrived from the Bandura Plateau. Like, this random man cares about that.
I know, like, why is he even saying anything like that?
Yeah, really. Gavin says, Zimbabwe. Their crops have been overrun by disease for decades. Well, your work will put an end to that. And Alex says that was the hope. Gavin says, that's the reality. Alex asks if he is from the Foundation, because they usually don't check in this late. And Gavin says, oh, no, but I have studied your work, and I know what it will lead to. Alex is like, my work? The lab's work, because I'm just a tech. Gavin says, for now, but someday you will help me find the vaccine. And Alex says, the vaccine? For what? Who are you? And what do you want? And Gavin says, your future. And a hole opens up in Gavin's forehead, and it's a third eye. And Alex is like, oh my God, what is happening? And Gavin puts a hole through Alex's forehead with the laser beam.
And, like, Alex did not put up a fight. He was not a small man.
No.
Like, he could have put up a fight.
Yes.
And I felt like they did not do a good job with that scene.
No. At the Halliwell Manor, Piper's handing Prue a cup of coffee, and Prue asks if it's leaded. Piper says no. And Prue's like, it's not? And Piper says, never has been. I just say it is because it's ridiculous to make 2 pots of coffee when you're the only one who drinks diesel, which makes me think that it's, like, really, really strong.
Yeah. Kind of like black coffee, maybe.
Yeah. And Phoebe says, Prue, don't give me grief when you get the phone bill. I was up all night on the internet, and I didn't find anything. That poor girl. Oh, Piper, I'm sorry about the crack I made last night about your zit. Do you remember when, like, the internet was linked with the phone bill?
Yes. It was, what was it? Dial.
Yeah.
Yes,
like
I remember. I remember if we wanted to call our friends, we would have to make sure that nobody was on the computer.
Yes.
Because my mom was big about the computer. And we'd be like, we'd pick up the phone and it'd have that little dial tone.
Yeah, be like,
yeah. And we're like, oh, I just want to call my friend.
Yeah. Do you remember having to wait till, like, after 9 because it was, like, 3 minutes after 9?
I do recall.
Which was always annoying for me because my mom was very big on, like, don't be on your phone when it's bedtime.
Yes.
So I'm like, dang, like, I could be living it up right now. That's why I don't have any friends, Mom. Thanks. Piper says, that's okay, so you really can't see it? And Phoebe looks at it again and says, like I said, it's huge. Piper notices that something weird is going on when Leo walks in. He says, morning, ladies. I should be able to finish the stairs today. Piper says, okay, I'll make some more coffee. And Phoebe says, and I'll bring it to you. If I was Leo, I would feel so uncomfortable,
yes.
honestly. Piper says, oh, here we go again, right? And Phoebe says, Piper, we both know the only reason I like Leo is because you do.
Ooh, finally, the truth is out.
She says, okay, I have no idea why I just said that. And she looks at Prue and goes, what's going on? And Prue said, okay, I'm late for work.
She tucked her tail and ran.
Busy, gotta go.
Which is so unlike Prue.
Yes. And Piper is like, hello, what's up? The sisters like attack her. And Prue says, I cast a truth spell. Both the other girls are shocked. And she says, yes, so please, no more questions. Piper asks why, and Prue tells her it's because she wanted to know what Andy would think of her if he knew that she was a witch. Phoebe says, I can't believe it. And Prue says, look who's talking, Little Miss Spell of the Week. Phoebe says, no, I mean, I can't believe you actually took my advice.
She felt so proud of herself in that moment. Specifically because it was Prue.
Yes. She says, the biggest pooper at the Wicca party has finally used her powers for personal gain. About time.
I loved that sentence. That's great.
Piper says, hold up. Personal. It's affecting us. What have you done? Prue says, well, the spell was only supposed to work on me. It said those in this house. I thought I was alone.
Which is fair.
Yes.
She did think so.
Yes. Phoebe points out that obviously she was not alone. And Piper says, we just have to undo it right now. Like this second. And Prue says that they can't. It's a 24-hour time limit, which means that until 8 o'clock tonight, everybody that comes into contact with them will have no choice but to tell the truth. Piper says, what do you mean no choice?
She's like panicking.
Yeah. Prue says, exactly. Ask me a question. Phoebe says, I'm game. Prue, what do you think of me?
I loved that was the question she asked because you don't know what that answer could be.
No. And Prue says, while I admire your confidence and your fearlessness, your utter lack of responsibility frustrates me to no end. Oh God, that is so enough.
I loved it. It could have been so much harsher. It really could have.
Piper is like, this could be so dangerous. I do not like this.
But Phoebe was all for it. She's like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah. She says, I'm kind of digging it. Piper, what do you really think of your boss?
Yeah.
And this made me laugh so hard. She says, she's like, you can tell she's trying to like hold herself back.
Yeah, she's got her fingers like curling up.
Yeah, but she says, I think he's a self-serving jerk who must have a very small penis. Oh my God, I'm going to be so fired.
The look on Prue's face when she said that, I thought it was priceless. Prue was like, oh, like, okay.
Prue says, once the spell ends, no one will remember what they've heard. I just want to see how Andy will react. Phoebe says, what a way to come out of the broom closet.
Again, I think she has some of the best lines in any of the episodes.
Yes. And Piper is like still very stressed. Are you nuts? We need to lock the doors, call in sticks, stay in our own bedrooms until it just goes away. And Phoebe is like, hello, there's a demon on the loose and we still have to find that woman. Wait a minute. And Piper asks if she had a premonition. And Phoebe says, no, I had an epiphany. So you're telling me that everyone I ask a question to has to answer with the truth. Prue says, I think so, yes. But that also means if we get asked a question, we have to answer with the truth. Phoebe is like, I can work around this.
Yes.
This is cool. This is very cool.
And her being the youngest, I was kind of surprised that she's like, I know my way.
Yeah.
I got this.
She like goes to head out the door and Piper turns to Prue and says, don't even think about asking me what I think of you right now.
And Prue like grips, like, ugh.
Yeah, she's like, yikes. At the police station, Phoebe is walking up to Andy's desk. He asks, what are you? And then she like cuts him off. And she says, have you talked to Prue?
She went straight for it.
Yes. He says, she left a message on my machine last night. I wasn't sure if I wanted to call her back or not. Phoebe says, believe me, trust me, definitely want to call her back. And she like gets a pad and pen out of her purse. And he asks, is that why she came there? Phoebe says, hardly. What do you know about the guy they found murdered in the movie theater parking lot the other night? Andy says, lead detective says he's not the only victim. Last night they found a lab technician out in Oakland. Each of them had the same cauterized mark on their forehead and their eyes were drained of color. They were completely white. Wait. Phoebe says, cause of death? He says, unknown. Looks like they took a bullet to the head, only there's no exit wound and no bullet. Phoebe, this is highly... Phoebe says, any suspects? He says, not yet. She says, any evidence that could lead to a suspect. He says, they found a button at the crime scene, possibly from the suspect's jacket, made of an alloy forensics has never seen before. What the hell is... And she goes, don't ask that question. Gotta go. Thanks. Don't forget to call Prue by 8 o'clock tonight.
I love how this scene was like, to me it was very scripted,
yeah,
but it flowed so well.
Yeah.
Like it was good.
Yeah, it was
comical.
very, very fast.
Yes.
And so Prue is in her office at Buckland's. The phone rings. She picks it up. She says, hello. Prue Halliwell. And it is Andy. He says, Phoebe stopped by. Suggested I give you a call. She asks if they could meet because she doesn't really want to talk over the phone. And he asks if he should be looking forward to it or dreading it. Prue says she doesn't know and asks what he's doing for dinner, and early dinner, like now. And he's like, it's lunchtime. And the clock says it's 12:35. And he says, I'm going to be interviewing a witness in your area around 5. I could swing around after. And Prue says, yeah, here, I guess that's fine. I'll see you then. She hangs up, and it's Tanya the sandwich girl. And she says, hey. Hannah walks up behind Tanya, and Hannah says, personal call, Prue.
And if you recall, Hannah is the redhead from previous episodes. I think she might be Buckland's assistant, maybe. I'm not really sure.
Buckland's something.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, personal something.
We see something happen.
Yes.
Spoiler.
But Prue says, personal business, Hannah. And I swear, that's my name on the door.
I know. I love her sassiness right there.
Yes. Hannah picks up a sandwich from Tanya and says, oh, look, last turkey, no mayo. My favorite. Tanya's like, I was saving that for Prue. And Hannah says, yep, you were. And Prue says, don't you hate turkey? Hannah says, of course I do. I just don't want you to have it.
Truth spell.
Yeah. Prue asks her if there's any particular reason that Hannah is such a bitch. And Hannah says, because it's my mission in life to destroy you.
I mean, if I were Prue, I would have definitely been like, what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, you have to tell the truth. So, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Well, Rex walks up, and he says, nothing like a bit of inter-office rivalry to get competitive juices flowing.
He was so awkward in this.
Hannah, a word. And they leave. We cut into Rex's office, and he goes, what the bloody hell do you think you're doing? Because he's English. I don't know if we've ever said that. Hannah says, I don't know. It came out. Rex says, no. It did not just come out. You almost came out. How am I supposed to believe that all of a sudden you lost complete control of your faculties? Hannah says, no, God, she's just so... Prue, forgive me. It's very interesting dynamic.
Like, there's a lot of sexual tension between the two. I can't tell if they are an item or not.
I think they are.
Or if...
The vibe it gives me is not appropriate for me to say on this podcast.
Yeah, like, they definitely give me intimate vibes. But at the same time, I can't tell if it's more of a boss, like...
subordinate thing?
Yeah, where she's just trying to suck up to him in any way she can.
I think they are intimate. I think they're together. But it's very much... He is very much the dominant partner, is what I will say.
Yeah.
And we will leave it at that. Rex says, always. And he gets out a cigar, and she blows on it, and it catches fire. It was very sexy.
It was. It definitely reminded me of not blowing on a cigar.
Yeah. It was something.
It was spicy. It was.
It's very sensual. And he tells her to get back to work. Then we cut to the Halliwell Manor living room. Piper's on the phone. She's telling Martin, I can't work tonight. I have to do the books. And she pauses. And then she says, do the books and run the floor? That's impossible. You don't understand. Right now, I'm on my way. And then she hangs up and says, nice talking to you too, jerk. Leo walks in and he has a spilt coffee on his shirt. He says, I had a little bit of an accident. You mind if I borrow your washer? Piper says, no, not at all. Go right ahead. Can I get you some coffee? Leo says, better not. I'll just end up knocking it over all over again. And he says, truth is, caffeine just makes me a little clumsy, you know? Piper says, Leo, wait. He says, yeah. She says, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. And she asks if he needs another shirt. Leo tells her that he has one in the truck, but says thank you. And Piper's like, Leo, wait, that wasn't my question. He says, it wasn't? She says, I was just wondering, do you ever think of me? He's like, sure, yeah.
Like, I don't know why she would start off with that question.
I don't know.
Like, just come out and say it.
Yeah. She's like, in what way? In a like a friend sort of way? Or... And he tells her that she has beautiful eyes. And she's like, that's a good way.
Yeah. She was definitely starting to get smitten. Like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah. He apologizes. He says, that was totally inappropriate, wasn't it? She says, no, not at all. What the hell? Leah, how do you feel about women who make the first move? He tells her that he doesn't know because he's still waiting for it to happen. She's like, goodness. And then she like rushes to him and kisses him. Mm-hmm. And then they break apart and he says, how do you feel about guys who make the second move? And she says, love them. And they kiss again.
Yes, he like grabbed the back of her head. It was
passionate.
A good kiss.
Yes. Back at Buckland's, Prue is waiting outside an elevator when Rex walks around the corner. They greet each other, and Prue says she's a nervous wreck because she's about to tell her boyfriend that she's a wit. And then Phoebe comes up and says, winner, she's a real catch. Mm-hmm. I'm Phoebe, her sister. We met, remember? Rex says, yeah, how could I forget? Mm. Prue suggests that they go to her office, and Phoebe says, the spell is really working. Prue asks if Phoebe talked to Andy, and Phoebe tells her that she definitely did, that Andy gave her a list of all the victims. They all died the same way. The only problem is they don't have a suspect, which means that I have no way of finding her, because Tanya walks by. And Prue's like, her? The sandwich girl? Mm-hmm. And so, like, Phoebe runs to, like, catch her, but Tanya gets in the elevator. And Gavin is in the elevator. So he turns to Tanya and he says, excuse me, are you Mrs. Parker? Tanya Parker? Tanya says yes. And Gavin says, you have been most difficult to find. Never in the same place. Never alone. Tanya says, excuse me?
Yeah, like
weirdo.
Major creeper.
Yeah. Phoebe and Prue tells her to take the stairs and she will call security. So we cut to the, like, parking lot. And Gavin has a hold of Tanya. She's screaming. Phoebe runs out, and on her way, she grabs, like, a glass bottle on the ground. Okay, Bucklands, clean up your trash.
Agreed.
Littering.
Like, maybe they were, like, getting ready to take it out. It did not look like it was just placed.
It looked
there.
like maybe somebody who was unhoused, like, was camping there.
Yeah.
Like, there was just trash and everything, mm-hmm. like a whole section. But Gavin starts putting the hole through Tanya's head with the laser beam, and Phoebe hits him over the head with the bottle.
Which I do want to say that Tanya did a great job putting up a fight.
Yes.
Like he had a hold of her arms, so she couldn't really, like, move her arms, but she definitely was, like, fighting. And yeah. I was like, when I watched it, I literally clapped my hand. I was like, thank you. Someone that is actually trying to survive.
Really?
Like, with Alex put no fight up.
Yeah.
Whereas little bitty Tanya here is like, no. Like, she fought.
Yes.
And I was proud of that moment.
Phoebe tells Tanya to run, and Gavin turns around to face Phoebe, but she hits him in the head with a bottle again. And Tanya runs to her car. Phoebe follows her. They get in, and they drive off. Prue runs out with security, but they're already gone.
And Gavin has disappeared.
Yes. At the Halliwell Manor in the living room, Tanya's on the phone. She's telling her husband that she's okay, that there's no reason to fly back early, that she's staying with friends. And Phoebe asks if she has any kids. Tanya says, not yet. Phoebe asks pets. Tanya says no. And then she tells her husband that she loves him and says, before I can explain any of this to my husband, you're going to have to explain it to me. What is going on? Phoebe says, short story, you're in danger. And to keep you out of it, we're going to have to keep you out of obvious places, which is why you have to stay here. Tanya asks, what was that thing? Love that. Tanya is the best. Phoebe says, truth spell, that thing was a demon. Tanya's like, and no, bye. I'm done. Phoebe says, no, Tanya, he's killed before. Trust me. Call the cops. Check it out. That burn on your forehead, that's how he does it. I've seen it. Okay, I have visions. Visions of people that I'm supposed to help. I've seen his next victim. It's you. There are no coincidences. I was supposed to see you, to find you, and now I'm supposed to save you. And then we cut to Quake. Piper's on the phone. She says, Romaine, in fridge 3. Phoebe, we cut to Quake. Piper's on the phone. She tells, like, a staff member that there's Romaine in fridge 3. And then she's talking to Phoebe on the phone, though. And she says, you have her there at the house? No, I understand you have to protect the innocent, but couldn't you find one that makes a decent béarnaise sauce? My kitchen is collapsing. I gotta go. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Which, again, makes me wonder, is she the head chef? Or is she, like, a manager or hostess? Like...
She hangs up the phone, and Martin walks up. She says, just the man I wanted to... And he says, I made a list. You better check it twice. I'll be back after the dinner rush. Piper says she's a family situation. And he says, oh, so you'd like to take off, go home, take care of business? Piper, like, starts taking her apron off. She's like, thank you for understanding. And he says, oh, don't thank me, because the answer's no.
I'm kind of surprised, like, how, like, she did not read how he was being sarcastic right there.
Yeah, he was very clear, in my opinion.
Like, she did not acknowledge it at all. And it was very, like you said, it was very clear.
Yes. Piper says, all right, Martin, what part of family situation do you not understand? Are you insane? No one person can do all of this. How do you expect me to do it all alone? And he says, because I know you will. He says, why spend money on more employees when I know you'll do it? And you won't complain. I got a bargain. All the work for half the price. Piper, I don't know why I just said that.
Yeah.
Piper says, too late, Martin. Truth's out, and so am I. You don't deserve me. I quit. At Buckland's, Prue walks in her office. Andy is in there. And she says, I'm so sorry I'm late. My meeting ran over. Andy tells her that her assistant, who we have never seen, says that he could wait here. He says, I hope that's okay. She says, of course. Can I get you anything? Something to drink? He says he's fine. How are you? She says, a nervous wreck. You? And he says, heart's pounding like a sledgehammer.
I like the way he said it. It was so comical.
She says, how well do you think you really know me? And Andy says, well, I know about your fondness for Twizzlers. I know you can't stand it when people talk during the previews. I know how you like to argue to win, and how you pick your cuticles when you're nervous. And it, like, cuts to her picking her cuticles. Mm-hmm. And I know I'd love to start seeing you again. I wish you could trust me enough to tell me whatever it is you're afraid of. And I loved that. That he was like random facts about her. That's so cute. Prue says, well, actually, that's what I wanted to see you about. Except that instead of telling you, I think I'll just show you. So here goes. See this? And she, like, picks up, like, a paperweight. He nods, and she says, watch. And she moves it with her powers, and he, like, jumps out of his chair. Yeah. Then he laughs and is like, what the hell? She says, that is her secret. I did that with my mind. He asks if she is telekinetic, and she says, yes, but it's so much more than that. I'm a witch. He says, a what? And she says, a good witch. I have powers. I never wanted them. I didn't even find out about them until recently. Right about the time I ran into you again. Okay, you know all those times that I disappeared or I would show up at a crime scene with no logical explanation? This is why. And believe me, I wanted to tell you, but I couldn't. I couldn't tell anyone. Are you okay? Andy says, I don't know. I mean, of all things I thought you were hiding, this was actually nowhere near the list. I do not believe you, Andy. I do not believe you.
And see, I'm not sure why he was so, like, in disbelief with it. Like, I feel that he has come across some type of situation where magic, or witches specifically, were involved. Because, again, in that first episode, he clearly knew that they were witches, not some hocus pocus person just playing around. Like, in that episode, he believed that there are witches.
So here's what I think. I think that if she would have told Andy without the spell, he would have been fine with it. I think him not being fine with it is the consequence for personal gain.
Oh, that's a good point. I was thinking maybe he had some type of negative experience with a witch.
I think he's fine. Like, he's been like, I went to go see a cultist. I went to go see a seer. I went to, I'm all these places. Yeah. And, like, I knew that guy was in his dreams killing people. Like, all these things. I think he would have been fine.
You make a good point.
If it wouldn't have been for the personal gain consequences.
Yep, that's a good point.
Because otherwise, what are the consequences?
Yeah, because she didn't really have any other than him, later on.
Yeah.
Telling her how he felt, really.
Yes. So Prue says, he asks if Piper and Phoebe are also witches, and she says that they inherited their power from Mom and Grams, And Andy says, so when you have kids, and Prue says, if they're girls, yes.
And in this scene right here, in this specific spot, he does wind up sitting back down.
Yes.
So he doesn't like freak out and just leave. So that kind of gave me an indicator that he would be interested in, the idea.
Yes. He says, that's quite a secret you've been hiding. And he asks if she can change. Is it something she can get rid of? Prue says, no, Andy, I can't change who I am, and that's something I've recently come to accept. The question is, can you? Prue says, I don't know. Andy says, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And then we cut to the Halliwell Manor living room. Phoebe, Piper, and Tanya are there. Tanya is looking through the Book of Shadows for the demon. Phoebe asks if Prue talked to Andy, and Piper says that she didn't say, and asks Tanya if she found anything in the Book of Shadows. Tanya says, nothing I recognize. Why are they having Tanya do it, though?
Because I thought the same thing. Like, why
Phoebe
did
saw him, too.
That? Yeah.
And Piper says, so Andy was the third victim. Andy said the third victim was a professor at Stanford. What's the link? Phoebe says, he may think it has something to do with what they're working on. Biogenetics. Piper says, a professor, a geneticist, a lab technician. Tanya says, and a sandwich girl. You really think he's after me? Phoebe says, uh-oh, true spell. And she touches Tanya, and then she has a premonition of Tanya holding a baby. She says, Piper, we need milk. Kitchen. She, drags her on. She says, she's carrying. Piper says, carrying what?
And I feel like any person that's had kids would understand what she meant by carrying.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like anyone that wouldn't have kids would feel the same, catch on to that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Piper did not.
No.
Also, I would have caught on to, carrying as in, a gun.
Yeah.
That was my second thought, but...
Well, I'm we're talking about biogenesis, carrying a disease.
Yeah.
What is happening? But Phoebe says, a baby. She's pregnant. And Piper's like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, let's go tell her.
Phoebe's like, no, she doesn't know. And Piper says, so what do? Do we tell her? I mean, we protect. We don't do prenatal. Phoebe says, this is not the kind of information Tanya needs right now, especially from people she just met who are telling her some three-eyed demon wants to suck the life out of her. Suck the life out of her. Wait a minute. It's possible it's not Tanya he wants, but it's her baby? Piper asks how he would know that she's even pregnant if Tanya herself doesn't know. And Phoebe says, I don't know. Maybe he sees the future too. Or maybe he's from it. Piper's like, excuse me? Phoebe says, the button. The police found a button by one of the last victims made out of some kind of funky metal they'd never seen before. Piper's like, be kind, rewind. And Phoebe says, okay, there's a button that's not supposed to exist, a demon that the Book of Shadows says doesn't exist, and a baby no one knows exists. You got a better explanation? Piper says, even if you're right, how do we find him? And Phoebe tells her that he wants Tanya, so he will find them. Piper says he doesn't know where we are. Phoebe says, well, he found Tanya at Buckland's. He saw me with Prue.
And I felt so she, obviously hits it on the nail.
Yes.
Where that he's from the future. I felt from the intro, I immediately got that he was from the future.
Yeah, because he, knew everything right before it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
So we cut to Buckland's in Prue's office. Hannah is at the doorway and tells her that she's, going to leave. She says,
very awkward moment.
Yes. She says, about what I said earlier. Prue's like, it's not a good time, Hannah. I don't care. Hannah says, I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Prue says, but you wouldn't really mean that, would you? And Hannah says, no. And she's like, freaking.
She literally does, the whole, no. Does the lip thing and everything.
And then she's like, oh my God. She, leaves.
There was, no other communication. She just immediately, turns and goes.
Outside Prue's office, we see Gavin walking around the corner towards the office. Gavin enters office and asks if she is Miss Halliwell, Prue Halliwell. Prue says, yes. Did we have an appointment? He says, no, I'm actually looking for someone, and I believe you can help me. Prue says, I find objects, not people. Yeah. Gavin says, well, I think you might know her. I saw you talking to her earlier. Petite, brown hair. The two of you were over by the elevators. Prue tells him that she doesn't remember, but she does.
Clearly.
And she asks what Gavin wants with her. Gavin says, she's hiding the woman I was sent back to kill. Prue says, sent back from where? And Gavin says, the future. What are you doing? And Prue's like, making her way around the, Prue asks why Tanya. And Gavin says, I don't want Tanya. I want what's inside her. And the others? Why kill them? And Gavin says, they're all pieces of the puzzle, pieces of the vaccine. Stop this! Because he's, realizing that he's telling her the truth. And he goes for her, but she uses her power to push the desk up against him, and then she runs outside. At the Halliwell Manor, Piper is trying to call Prue, but it's going to the answering machine. And she says, it's no answer, it's after 5, it's going straight to voicemail. Phoebe tells her that she has to go to Buckland's. Piper says, okay, I'll grab my keys, you grab Tanya. Phoebe tells her that she has to go alone, because if they bring Tanya and he's there, it's like bringing the feast to the lion, but she can't stay here by herself. And Piper says, I need you, Phoebe, we need you. And Phoebe says, I can't always be the power of 3. Piper says, well, what if he comes here and you're all alone? Phoebe says that they will be in the attic with the book. Piper tells her to be careful, they hug, and then back at Buckland's, Prue is running down the stairs with Gavin following. She runs into a storeroom and hides. Gavin says, I have 8.5 months to find Tanya, Miss Halliwell. Plenty of time. Yours, however, has run out.
Dun, dun, dun. That was kind of cheesy.
Yeah. Prue runs into Piper runs into Prue's office, and she sees the mess on the floor, Prue's purse all amok, and she runs back out of the office. We cut back to the storeroom. Gavin is saying, you can't hide from me forever. Prue asks what the vaccine is for and what it protects against. Gavin laughs evilly. And he says, against me, of course, and all the other warlocks like me in the future. The Parker child will be the one to bring together all the elements to create the vaccine which will destroy us. Unless I stop him. And he picks Prue up by her neck, and his third eye thing opens.
Oh my gosh. The way, she did not struggle.
Mm-mm.
At all. Her legs just dangled there. If someone is choking me, the way he was choking her, I would have been, kicking my legs. I would have been scratching. I would not have just put a hand on his leg.
Elizabeth wants to know if this is, in fact, a non-consensual choking site.
Hey, people have their preferences. That is not one way.
She says, Prue, how long has it really been?
And maybe that's what it was about. I don't know, but she could have struggled a little more.
Piper runs in. She freezes Gavin and asks if she needs a hand. Piper grabs a crowbar and loosens Gavin's grip. I guess because he's frozen.
I guess. Also, wouldn't that have, hit Prue in the face?
Really?
That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Piper says he's not after Tanya. He's after her baby. She's pregnant. Prue's like, I know. Truth spell. Later. Where's Phoebe? Piper says she's at home protecting Tanya. And Prue says, well, what are you waiting for, Piper? Whack him. Piper says, no, can't you move him? Prue says, where? He's from the future. Piper tells her that she's going to unfreeze soon. And Prue's like, just do it. Piper says, no, you do it. Prue says, no, you do it.
They're
Piper.
Fighting back and forth with the crowbar.
Yes, but he unfreezes, and as they're fighting, the momentum moves the crowbar, and it's shoved into Gavin's third eye. And he screams while holding the crowbar and rips it out of his forehead, and the third eye glows blue for a while as it's seen shoved inside of his head and crushed. And then he drops dead on the floor. And then a big blue tornado cloud.
It looked like it was a worm.
Yeah.
That just came out.
Yes. It comes down from the ceiling and it sucks him up. And Prue says, I love it when they clean up after themselves.
I thought that was great. Because they clean up after them if it's a mess.
No,
what?
Not one time have they had to clean up after somebody.
It just vanishes anyways.
Yes. Outside Andy's apartment, Prue is waiting there when Andy walks up. Now it's going to be a sobering moment, which is so sad. But Andy greets her, they greet each other, and Prue says, I need to know how you feel about what I told you. Andy says, I'm going to need a little more time. And Prue says, I don't have time, Andy. I need to know before 8. Andy asks if she wants to come inside and talk about it. Prue says, I can't, because if she comes inside, they'll have drinks, there'll be small talk, precious minutes will pass. I need to know now. Can you or can you not accept that I'm a witch? And Andy says, if I have to answer right now, I don't think so, Prue. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. It's just not a future I envision having. And then a clock chimes, and it's 8 o'clock. And he asks what they were just talking about.
I do wish that she would have given him more time, because he was put on the spot, so he didn't really get a process.
Yeah.
It, because they were supposed to meet at 5. She had until 8. Her meeting ran over, so it was probably 6. So he may have had maybe 1 to 2 hours to process that information, and that's not enough to process such a phenomenal thing. So I do wish that she would have given him more time on that.
Yes. Prue asks that he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember anything that he said in the last 24 hours. And he says, no, it's really weird. You want to come inside? And Prue is crying, and she says, I have to go. She kisses him on the cheek and says, goodbye, Andy. And she walks around the corner and, breaks down. It's really sad.
It is. It really is.
We cut from that depressing scene to Quake. Piper and Phoebe are sitting at a table, and Phoebe says, what good is saving the future if I can't get a glass of water in the present? Piper says, speaking of the future, where did Tanya go? Phoebe says she went to the bathroom, morning sickness, only she thinks it's the halibut. I feel like they could tell her now.
I mean, they could.
Why are they not?
But maybe they're wanting her to find out on her own.
I guess. Piper says, great, she'll probably sue the restaurant for food poisoning. Will this day ever end?
I mean, what she cares? She quit, right?
Literally. Phoebe says, actually, it just did. It's 8:20. The spell is over. The world is a safer place. Martin walks up and asks, Piper, I see you sitting. What is wrong with this picture? And Piper says, you don't remember? Martin says, remember what? Piper, I need you in the kitchen pronto. We're down a sous chef. And he, walks away. Piper, huffs. She's like, I don't believe it. I finally stand up for myself and quit. And he doesn't even remember. Wait a minute. Everybody else has forgotten the truth. Why do we still remember it? Phoebe says, truth or consequences, Wiccan rule, right? Prue cast a spell for her own personal gain, and now we have to deal with the fallout. Piper says she'll be right back. She needs to remind Martin of something. And Phoebe says, ooh, you go, girl. Piper walks into the kitchen and is like, Martin, we need to talk. And he throws her an apron. And he says, excuse you. Piper says, I will not do everything by myself anymore. I need help. Your restaurant needs help. I need another manager, a sous chef, a hostess, and an extra busboy on the weekends. And if you will not agree to hire these people, tell me now and I will quit. Martin says, well, what took you so long? All you had to do was ask.
He literally said it nonchalantly.
Yeah.
Well, what took you so long? As he said.
Yeah. Piper's like, really? I mean, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. He's like, but and Piper says, it's my night off. And she walks towards the door, pushes it open, and she hits Leo in the face. Yeah. She says, oh, Leo, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? He says he's fine, just surprised. And she says, me too. What are you doing here? And he tells her that he wanted to see her. He said, I have this really strange feeling that I did something I should apologize for. Did I? Piper tells him that he has nothing to apologize for and asks if she can buy him a drink. We cut to Phoebe with Prue walking up to the table. They greet each other, and Prue says that it did not go well. Phoebe says she's so sorry, and Prue says, me too, but I cast a spell for an answer, and I got it, even if it wasn't the one I wanted.
I hated that for her, but I do wish that she would have given him more time. I really do.
Go to the police station and be like, we need to talk.
Yes.
That's what Andy does.
Yeah. So what did you think of the title of the episode?
I mean, I liked it because I do think it had a lot to do with the episode, but it felt like the warlock was definitely a B plot. It did not
when
matter.
It should have been A.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it was very fitting for Prue's situation. I think it went real well with hers, but I do agree that the antagonist plot did not really go well with it. I mean, he eventually comes out and tells the truth.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like that was...
But, it did not...
point.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We already knew that before he told Prue.
Yeah.
So who was your Witch of the Week?
So, my witch of the week is Piper, because I liked the fact that she finally got her backbone and stood up for herself. And I hope that that continues throughout the seasons.
Yes. I picked Piper for the same reasons. Oh. I really liked the way that she stuck up to her boss, like eventually like grew a spine. And I liked that she took the reins with Leo. I thought that was such a good moment.
Yeah, because she did something for herself.
Yes.
Like I definitely feel like I can kind of relate with Piper. Like, I don't like putting myself out there unless I absolutely have to. Mm-hmm. And I feel like Piper is the same way. Like, she doesn't like putting herself out there. It's not all about her. And she's kind of in the background, kind of like a chef. Mm-hmm. You're not usually out on the floor where people see you. You're in the background. And I thought that was great for her.
Yeah, I really liked that she was, like, not for the truth spell at all, but then she did like use it to her advantage. Mm-hmm. And then once the spell was over, she still like remained strong.
She stood up for herself.
And I really liked that.
And I feel like, you know, even though Leo doesn't remember, I feel like she's still going to take that initiative, or at least I hope she does, and moves forward with Leo.
Yes.
I mean, I know eventually they get married. I know that, but I hope she still takes that step.
I think it's like a confidence booster.
Yeah.
Like, he does actually like me. And then he like came to the restaurant after. That's so cute.
To see her specifically.
Yeah, very cute.
Yeah. So that is it for today's episode of Spells and Spoilers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Spells and Spoilers and TikTok at Spells and Spoilers Pod for more. We'll be back next time with more supernatural fun. See you later.
Bye.